Hello, beautiful, divine, magical souls. Thank you so much for being here and joining this transmission. Today, I want to share a few insights about inner peace and finding inner peace in what is otherwise a very outwardly chaotic world. So, to start with, I just want to invite you to consider what the term inner peace actually means for you, because I think one of the issues that we have is that we feel so disconnected from any sense of peace. Like the actual concept of being at peace or at rest can be quite confronting. It's a very foreign idea. And, the entire structure of our reality, the nature of the world around us, is such that we've never really probably encountered a space of peace, where we're not taught to regulate our nervous system. Many of us get stuck in this hypervigilance threat detection mode, because we don't know how to, how to detach. We don't know how to step back from, the barrage of stimuli and input that come to us each and every day. So before I jump into it, I just want to say thank you so much. If you are a subscriber, I'm so grateful for you being here. If you resonate with this content, I would love to have you join the channel. Subscribe, it's totally free. And if you're actually interested in exploring this work more deeply, I offer one-on-one spiritual mentorships. And if that speaks to you, you can book a free alignment call in the link, which will be in the comments below. So, whatever stage you're at, I'm just grateful to be in service. So thank you for being here. So, one of the most difficult things that we tend to do is we focus outwardly. We expect the external circumstances to create our sense of inner well-being and inner safety. And we've kind of been trained and programmed into this sense of needing to constantly fill our time, needing to constantly do. The focus is always on the doing, not in the being. And I mean, if you look at the world around us, we've got the media, which is a whole different topic of conversation. But we've also got our workplace, we've got our family and our friends, we've got commitments, and we always want to fulfill every desire and every need that, anyone outside of us may have. And now just coming back to the media thing, this, when we talk about having a chaotic world, if you watch the news, it's horrifying, some of the things that we see. And so how on earth can we possibly expect to find inner peace when everything around us is operating in direct contradiction to that? And in fact, our inner system, our nervous system, is simply trying to keep us safe, or in a sense of perceived safety, by it being reactionary, by being constantly in reaction to that. And in fact, you may have noticed that, with the idea of empathy and all that, I'm all about holding compassion. But we really disempower ourselves when we have this kind of, it's almost as though there's this displaced sense of nobility when we fall into the story of others. If somebody comes to us and tells us all about the terrible things that are happening to them, we kind of feel obliged to get drawn into that pain story. And that is a big way that we get robbed of our inner peace. It's not that we turn our back on anyone, or it's not that we don't allow people to have their experience of life. But when you allow somebody else's experience of life to become your own, that's when you give up your own power and your own sovereignty over your internal state of vibration. And this is what we all need to really restore. So as we restore this on an individual level, we can radiate and reflect that sense of peace, that sense of resilience and sovereignty out into the world around us. It's truly transformative. So, one of the first things, and I did mention the drama. So one of the key practices I'll be sharing with you today is in mindfulness, and that's a great stress management tool. And why do we get stressed? We get stressed because we have the dramas, we have the stories, what's going on at work, what our best friend is going through in their relationship. All of these things, if we take them on, they become stress, and they disrupt our inner sanctuary, because our internal world really can be a space of peace and sanctuary. So number one, we really need to choose it. We need to acknowledge that peace is available. We need to acknowledge that the current state and expectation of our internal workings is really distorted. It's not healthy. And in fact, we see all the chronic illnesses and all that sort of thing that surround us. A lot of those are greatly improved when we can manage our stress, when we can manage our, the stress chemicals in our body. So stress management's key. But we do need to choose it. We need to acknowledge that this can be a choice. We need to acknowledge the power of having a positive mindset and the transformative nature that can actually have in our lives. So it's not automatic. Inner peace is not, and I think that's why a lot of us get put off, is because we don't think that it's possible or available. We can only have an expectation of what we've experienced in our life so far. But because it's not automatic, we don't know how to do it. Like I said, we don't know how to regulate our nervous system. People think that if they sit to meditate or have a meditation practice, that unless it comes easily, they're doing something wrong. And that's not the case, And in fact, if you do want to try out a meditation practice, I've included a link in the comments or in the description, and you can download a free little mindfulness meditation, and it's a really great practice to start restoring that sense of inner peace. But back to inner peace in a chaotic world. So when we start to acknowledge that there is actually a better way, that inner peace may be available to us, and that essentially we're rebelling against the status quo, this tendency to overwork, to overgive, to burn ourselves out, because maybe it's almost as though we've been taught that if we're not exhausted, if we don't fill our time completely and utterly, then we're not valid, we're not justified in our being, But you are enough just by being here. Your very existence is enough. And from that space, we can then choose to move mindfully and consciously into the world. And in fact, our capacity for inner peace is a real measure of our spiritual growth. And so, if you are interested in the spiritual path, which I imagine you are, if you're watching this, the capacity that we have to experience inner peace is a real measure of how we are moving along that path, and how much more deeply we are connecting with our soul, with our truth, with our true nature. So what we are living in, the state of the world, is not normal. The media has a disproportionate amount of control over our lives, and we need to cultivate practices, self-care practices, healthy boundaries that enable us to maintain a healthy awareness of our surroundings and our circumstances, but to have sovereignty over our inner experience. So that's kind of what we're going to look at today. So the first thing I mentioned is the mindfulness practice. As I said, you can download a free one if you're interested. But a mindfulness practice, what does that do for us? It enables us to be present. And when we're present, when we're in this moment, we're not caught up in our thinking mind. We're in the awareness of what is actually happening in our body, in our experience. Anxiety is a function of the thinking mind, which is either projecting into the future or dwelling on the past. So when we have a meditation practice or a mindfulness practice, we're centering in our present moment. So the power of presence is a potent state. Mindfulness and meditation will build up our resilience to experience the outside world. And like I said, we get bombarded with information, and it's never good news. It's always bad news. But when we create space to experience our inner world, to experience safety in our inner world, in our presence, we can develop the resilience and that non-attachment, so that we don't need to carry on the burdens and the stories and the pain and the suffering of everything that we see going on around us. We can have compassion for it, but we don't need to enter it ourselves. And this is how we change the world. People might go, oh, that sounds cold and heartless. It's not heartless at all. It's born of a true compassion and a true desire to see transformation and, an upliftment of our collective experience. So mindfulness also helps us to heal our triggers. It is a healing process, and meditation, that sense of presence, when we can sit with what our experience is. And this is, when we are in a chaotic space, allowing ourselves to notice what's going on for us, so we might feel overwhelmed. And so notice the overwhelm, and coming back to presence can help to dissipate that overwhelm. That's a whole practice in itself. And mindfulness and meditation, as you probably know, it's a stress management tool. It's amazing. It really nourishes the body and the soul and the mind. So the next point is boundaries, healthy boundaries and self-care practices. So when we can create healthy boundaries, we're honoring ourselves and our self-care. We can begin to look at how we can say no. How often have you felt a disruption to your inner peace, or you felt uneasy in yourself because you either haven't created a boundary, or you've let somebody walk all over your boundary, or you've invited someone to, all too often we kind of overgive voluntarily, and then find that we kind of feel a little bit ick, like we've betrayed ourselves. So to learn how we can create healthy, loving boundaries. Boundaries aren't about stay away, stay away, stay away. And there's a beautiful quote, and it says, this stuck with me this has stayed with me for a long time, is that boundaries are the thing that lets me love you while loving me too. And so when we overgive, it's kind of a bit inauthentic, because we're in dissonance, we're out of alignment with our truth, we're not honoring our own needs and our own desires, which are valid and worthy. But when we have loving boundaries and we honor ourselves, we can then give more fully and more authentically to others. But it can occur within a container which is expansive for us, for both us and the other person. And this actually cultivates deeper connection, which is a fundamental part of our human needs, is to experience deep connection. And as we shift into the new paradigm, we're noticing the capacity for more meaningful and expansive connection to occur. And in fact, as you go through the process of ascending consciousness, you may notice that those more superficial connections will melt away, or you focus on developing connections that can exist at the depth at which you know yourself. So so boundaries, habits, creating good habits, which are based in self-care and nourishing. And this does sometimes take discipline. And the third point that I want to make in terms of finding inner peace in an otherwise chaotic world is a term I'm calling quantum discernment. Now, it's not my term, I didn't make it up, but quantum discernment. And this refers to kind of our recognition that we are conscious creators of our reality. And, we are also what we consume. And so as we consume, we'll take in food, we'll take in stories, dramas, information, news, fear, other people's energy. So whatever we take in will become the dominant frequencies in our experience and in our bodies. And whatever we're embodying, we will project outwardly. So in quantum discernment, it's kind of an invitation, and I'm going to actually expand this point So it's kind of a twofold point. It's taking that responsibility for our internal vibration and using things like mindfulness practice or meditation, boundaries, and discernment to go, okay, well, I can observe this energy or this experience in my field. I'm choosing, number one, not to engage and not to perpetuate that. And so we can allow other people to be in their drama or their pain stories. We can have compassion for it, but we don't necessarily need to take that energy on. And this is almost an energetic boundary, which is a skill to learn. But it's also taking responsibility for our triggers. So if we are triggered by something, and this is, touching on shadow work, which I won't go into, but, when we notice ourselves triggered by something, whether it's, simply someone cutting us off in traffic or whether it's seeing some terrible act of atrocity on the news, our responsibility to ourselves and our own inner peace is to take that trigger and to be with it instead of projecting, blaming, rationalizing, justifying, finding a space of non-judgment for yourself, and essentially non-judgment. We don't need to condone a situation to sit in a space of non-judgment. I'll say quantum non-judgment, this quantum discernment, because it's saying I am the sovereign of my frequency, and I will not allow myself to be corrupted by this information that I'm receiving. I have a vision and I'm retaining my vision whilst remaining aware of all that's in conflict with it. And essentially, when we talk about quantum work, everything that you experience, as Bashar says, you cannot experience something or you cannot perceive something that is not in a vibrational match for you in some way. And that can be a kind of a complex exploration, but it's also not. So, discern what you choose to affect your frequency, and you can use the tools such as mindfulness to move through that. We have practices of self-awareness, self-exploration, and it's incredible, So as you cultivate the capacity for inner peace, you actually cultivate that frequency in the world around you. And this, yes, it's your immediate world, but imagine if millions and billions of us do this inner work. Imagine the capacity that has to flow on to creating the world that we want to experience. And so, I invite you to draw back that responsibility, that capacity you have to experience inner peace, to notice the chaotic world and to be the rebel, to be at peace in spite of it. So my beautiful souls, I hope this has served. Again, if you enjoyed this or it resonated, please, like the video, drop a comment, or subscribe to the channel for more content like this. And again, if you're interested in this sort of spiritual journey, this self-exploration and self-empowerment, my 6-month program, it's called Alchemy and Empowerment, and I would love to share that with you if you want to have a chat. Much love.